We'll welcome you home, everybody. And I'm so excited to be back here in Korea. I was in the States for, if I think about like 5 days, and I went primarily because I was officiating a wedding for someone that I promised 15 years ago, right? And so 15 years ago, she asked me to marry her off, and I said, okay. And I've told my men's discipleship that we have to be people of our word, right? And so when she asked me, I said, okay, I'll go, and I will be a part of this wedding that is so beautiful. And I had a great moment, a great time over there with her. Her name is Annie and Matt, and the wedding party, and it was a huge blessing. But before I go into the word, I want to kind of highlight again our 1-year anniversary retreat. Our retreat theme is breakthrough. And we really encourage you to join us in breaking through kind of the limiters of our faith. You know, there's a lot of times in our life, there's things that we are praying through. There's things that we really hope that He can help us break through. And I'm really hoping that through this retreat, we can be like Hannah's. We can be like Jacob's. And we could, in the sense of things, be like Jesus in coming to the feet of God and really see a breakthrough in our life. I'm very excited. On the first day, we had almost 30 people sign up. And through, I think we'll have anywhere from 45, 50 to almost maybe even 60 people come to retreat. And so we just really encourage you to sign up for retreat. It's going to be a blessing. I know last week, some of you guys were worried about like sleeping bags. As you can tell, the place is nice. And we got great pricing, right? But that's why the price is what it is, because we're going to a nice location and we are worshiping in the church it's like kind of on a cliff. So it's a beautiful church as well. And so we really encourage you to join us for the retreat. You will not regret it. And more than anything, I really believe that we will go to the next level together spiritually as a church. Today, I'm going to be talking about how we communicate. And this is the sermon between our last sermon series, which was about spiritual warfare, and our next sermon series, which is about spiritual power, right? And today I want to focus on the way we communicate, because as I've told you a few minutes ago, when I went to the States to officiate this wedding, it was a Filipino wedding. It was my first time officiating a Filipino wedding. They have an interesting, a blessed ceremony where they have a veil, and then they have a cord, and then they have a coin, right? And they have these 3 different mediums to kind of represent just the sanctity of marriage under Christ. And I remember, it was interesting because I haven't met the bride's party. I know the mom, right? When the student was in junior high, I was her pastor. When the student was in high school, I was her pastor. And when I planted my church, she was our kansanim at our church. So we go a long way back. But for the groom side, I only met, he came to our church when I was in the States for maybe 6 to 7 months. And afterwards, after our 7th week of online, we had a Zoom marriage counseling. I never met the parents. And so I remember when I first met the parents, they're like, oh, interesting. This guy's the pastor, right? That's the vibe I got. And obviously, I don't know what that says about me, but I remember at the beginning, so this is the guy who's doing your wedding, right? And through, I remember at the end of the wedding, the whole groom side of the party, they came and they said, that was the most beautiful ceremony we experienced. And I think the reason why that was because obviously the bride and groom, there was a deep connection. But I can't tell you how many times during our marriage counseling sessions, it was Zoom, it wasn't even in person. There were so many emotions and tears. That was started, we kind of joked about it. I started doing relationship counseling with them. It was supposed to be 2 weeks, and we elongated it to 7 weeks over a span of 3 months because timing didn't work out. And it became them committing to marriage at the end of the counseling session. And so I think what was felt at the center of the ceremony was a genuine connection between not only the whole bridal and groom party, but I don't get very emotional many times, but I remember when I saw the bride coming down, I was just like, man, this is a very meaningful moment. And when I was sharing the message with them, and when I heard their vows, and when I was asking them to repeat the vows, it was very special for me. The reason I say all this is what transcends culture, what transcends language, I believe, is the heart. And the question I want to ask you today before I go into the word is, how do you communicate to the world? What is your language? And I want to commit each and every one of you to the fact that love, agape love, must center how we communicate with the world, or else everything is actually meaningless. Our passage is going to be from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1 through 13. This is a very famous passage. Again, 한국말이 더 편하신 분들은 우리가 동시 통역이 있거든요. 그래서 그 QR 코드를 찍고 그 에어팟 같은 거 없으면 우리 밖에 그 에어팟 좀 키트가 있어요. 트랜슬레이션 키트. 그래서 진정이 한국말이 훨씬 더 편하신 분들은 그렇게 해주시고 또 우리 스태프분들이 도와드릴 거예요. Right? And so if you're more comfortable with Korean, that is one way you can listen to the word, because we don't want you to things to be lost in translation. Furthermore, we have questions. We have a questions QR code. So during the message, if you have any questions, if you want us to elaborate a message or something, we want this message to be interactive. So please ask your questions through our QR code link. I want to begin our message by reading for us verse 1 through 3. From verse 1 through 3, it says this: If I speak in tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith, so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. The first point I want to share with you from this passage is that without love, nothing else matters. What is life without true love? And this is not talking about the eros love that the world is force feeding us, right? I'm not talking about this idea of romantic love that we see in just Korean dramas. I'm not talking about this love which you could only speak about with butterflies in our stomach. What I want to tackle with you is a love that lasts throughout the rest of our life. That this true love, which I will define a little bit later through the passage. What is life without true love? The answer, I think, is it's a blur. Life without true love is a blur. And what do I mean by that? Think about all those moments in life that you just went through a routine. That you went through life, clocking in, clocking out, waking up, going to sleep. Your pattern of life was the same, to the point where you feel like you are losing a track of how fast life is going. That you are robotic in your approach. You are systematized in how you respond to our everyday. That you are just trudging around life, or you're speeding through life as if you are on fast forward. Life without true love is a blur. What is power without love? It is selfish tyranny, where it is not about anything but just the power, about gripping the power, about holding the authority, and for many of us, having control over our life. Power without love is tyranny. What is knowledge without love? I truly believe if we do not have love, genuine love in our hearts, knowledge is an overwhelming cynicism. That the more you know about the world, but you do not have love, the more we get jaded, the more we are broken, the more we are skeptical, the more we have distrust, and the more we start to despise and hate the world. Why? Because when we see the world for what it is, I think we all can say, more than the goodness of God, there is division, hatred, selfishness, and the like. What is good works without love, as it says here? Empty. When we do good things, but we do not have love, we do it in religiosity. We do it because we have to. And what is actually good that we do gets stymied and stunted by the fact that we feel that we have to do it. So what is good that what we have done gets dissipated by the duty of our hearts. So we lose the joy of doing the good because there's no love. What is building skills? What is building talents without love? We will become, there's a phrase, right, for people that just are really good at what they do and they're grinding. We're like a machine. And in current terms, we're like AI. We become really good at something. We become robotic in our execution. And we become very good, like a well-oiled machine, but without love, we become like a robot. What I want to share with you today is that only genuine love is at the center of all things meaningful. And that above all things, that the heart of love, the way we view the world with our heart, the way we communicate love with our heart, is the way we transcend words, actions, and language. And why many of us are not completely comfortable in a church that desires to be a home, not only for English speakers, not only for Korean speakers, not only for whatever mother language we have speakers, but that we are desiring to be a church that genuinely speaks the language of agape love. Then we have to answer the question, what is agape love? And we could see that in the crux of verse 4 through 7. If we read this passage, then we could see. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. I'm going to read for us one more time. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love cannot be simplified down to a feeling. It is by which we must view everything. And true love does not get caught up in how we are perceived in our love, how we feel, what results, what actions are to be liked. If you actually look at true love, it is not a feeling that we receive, but it is an expression of what we believe. Many of us, we simplify love as a feeling, as a thought, as what the momentary emotion is at that time. Genuine, true love is the way we view the world and the way we express what God believes about relationships to the world. True love, I want to clarify one more time, can only be found in Jesus Christ. Because he was the only one on this earth that expressed it, that lived it, and that really showed what he talked about. And for us to be in true love, we need to genuinely understand the qualities that God calls love. And so when we look at the first quality that is spoken about, it says what? Love is patient and kind. Love is patient and kind. I think for many of us, when we think about our relationships, what is the first thing that we say about how we think about the relationships closest to us? We're impatient. And why are we impatient? Because of all the things that those that are close to us have done wrong. And I'm going to be highlighting this a little bit later. And when I want us to kind of think about our relationship right now with our family. Are you genuinely kind and patient with your family? I think many of us, we can't say that we are patient with our family. Then it is no wonder why we are not experiencing true love in our life. Because the people that are closest to us are the ones that normatively we should be experiencing genuine love. That if the closest people to us are impatient with us and we are impatient with them, they're unkind to us and we are unkind to them, it is no wonder that our expression to the world is not one of love, but one of lovelessness. One of the first things that we really have to highlight about genuine love is what is at the center of it is kindness and patience. When was the last time you said to yourself, I want to love my family, which means I'm going to genuinely endure in my patience. And it doesn't matter what they do to me. It doesn't matter what short words they say to me. Because, let's say your loved one, let's say your family member, let's say your friend, right? They say something short to you. What is a natural response? You say something short to them. But I do not want to be reactionary, but I want to commit to express genuine love from my heart. And I will be kind regardless of how unkind they are to me. How many of us are committing to this kind of patience and this kind of kindness? Because only in doing so can we begin to start to express genuine love. The second thing we see in genuine love is not whatever I feel like, whatever I believe in, and whatever I want to do. Love is not envious or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. It is learning to care about someone more than you care about yourself. And this is what I truly believe is the catalyst for breaking down walls. We always talk about wanting to be a community of Christ. We always want to talk about being a loving community. The only way that you and I can genuinely connect in love is when one of us, at least one of us, genuinely, intentionally desires to desire their gain more than our own. That this language from the heart is the only way that we could break down brokenness, and we could break down hurt, and that we could break down pain. And people sense it. We all have a sixth sense, right? We all have a disingenuous radar, right? We all know when someone, deep inside, maybe we don't fully know it, but we all get some sort of a sense when someone is not being authentic. But also, there's a deep sense, even if we're fighting against it because we're so hurt, we get some sense when someone is being genuinely loving. And the way we do that is we do not communicate in envy and boastfulness, but we communicate from a place that genuinely desires the other person to succeed and the other person to thrive. That, within that, is the communication that will genuinely break down the walls of brokenness that we need to see broken down. And this is why Eros love does not succeed and cannot succeed. Why is it? Because Eros love, the love of the flesh, the love that is based on the eyes, the nose, right? Some people, they believe the smell is just as important as sight, right? Their voice, your hearing, whatever it may be. Some people value someone singing so well, right? So, that's why a lot of musicians have a lot of fans. Whatever it may be from the physical standpoint, some of us, we are so consumed by the Eros love. But honestly speaking, because it is a physical reaction, it will not last. Just as a body tires when it runs a marathon, no matter how much stamina you have, a love that is based on the eyes, a love that is based on the ears, a love that is based on the smell, a love that is based on the flesh will pass away. And at those moments, it may feel the most natural, right? That's why when you get the butterfly feeling, like people seek that one more time, like they're like, oh, I need to refine it, rekindle that. But the fact of the matter is, Eros love by itself, I want to say that God has given us a joy. He has given us the gift of, within the context of agape love, to romantically love one other person, right? That is a gift from God. And yet when that is the center of our understanding of love, I want to highlight again, it will not last. And just as our body tires itself, gets tired after straining itself, love, Eros love, will tire itself out once the physical machinations are not satisfied. And that is why we have to understand. Eros love is a consumer love. And initially it may feel good. It may feel like that's the most natural thing. But I want to confirm for us once again that it is not a love that desires to be envious, that desires to boast what I am, but a love that genuinely cares about the other and wants to boast about how much the other person is great, that is the only love that lasts. Can I get an amen? And that is the love that we must pursue, a love that genuinely seeks better for someone, even if, and this is where the latter part of this passage is, even if there is a risk that we might be hurt. And this is why the next passage is spoken here, that love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. That love is humble and courteous, right? That love does not insist on their own way. Insisting on our own way, I think it begins with our experiences. What we believe about relationship, what we believe about love, what we believe about what it means to care about one another, that is the beginning of insisting our own way. We are allowing our past, we're allowing our experiences, good and bad, form what we believe that our relationship should be now. And the fact of the matter is that no matter how good of a past relationship you had, if you are seeking a new one, the past got broken for a reason. Or if that relationship is someone like your parents that are a blessing to you. And some of us are very blessed with great parents. If that's you, we live in a time where that's more far in between, which is a tragedy in my estimation. But if you do have something like that and you kind of translate that to everyone around you, and you insist that they're like your parents, that is still a very selfish, non-godly form of love. At the center, again, of love is not insisting on our own way. And once you are able to overcome insisting on your experiences, on what you believe is a method of love, then you will start to be able to listen. When you stop insisting on your own way, you now gain the capacity to listen to what the other person's hurt, pain, joy, what they genuinely are desiring in this aspect of love. You know, what it means to be not irritable and resentful is to not take score of someone's wrong. But a lot of us, the more hurt that we are in our life, what do? We do take scores of people's wrongs. And actually, that passage at verse 6 really highlights it. That love does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in truth. But for many of us that take score, that are irritable, resentful, we would rather someone suffer more than us ourselves do well. We would rather someone fail than ourselves succeed. Because what we know in relationship is the brokenness of the world. And some of us are more caught up in rejoicing in wrongdoing than rejoicing in truth. Rejoicing when someone is as miserable as us, then us all doing well together. Because for some of us, doing well seems like a feather in the wind. We feel as something good cannot last. When something good happens to us, we feel that it will be taken away. And it is because we are not in, and we do not have faith, and we do not believe in the love of Christ. And what true love means is that we must rejoice in truth. And what rejoicing in truth means is to be happy because we believe that God is love and that He has healed us from all brokenness. You see, church, a lot of times when we receive Jesus as Lord and Savior, the last thing to go for many of us is our past. We hold on to our past while we say God is in control of our present. We say, oh God, you have made me good now, but this, I'm not going to face it. I'm not good with this yet. In due time, I will face it. And that is dragging us along this road where in the name of Christ, we're still happy with people being more miserable than us thriving and doing well. See, that's not the right picture. And this is the reason why Paul says there is love, hope, and faith. But without love, none of these things persist. Because it is the love of Christ and joy in this truth, joy that the love of God is enough, that will give us the strength to genuinely, truly heal, to truly be restored. You see, church, too many of us are okay, or we've settled, even while trying to have faith in God, We have settled in our misery. We have settled in rejoicing in wrongdoing. We have settled in accepting failure and accepting tragedy in our life because that's just the way it is. And what Christ calls us to do is to not rejoice in wrongdoing, not to rejoice in brokenness, not to rejoice in tragedy in others and ourselves, but to learn to rejoice in truth. The truth that God did not die for us because we were worthy to die for, but He died for us. But simply put, He just loves us. To simply put, when we look into the mirror, we're like, this is an unlovable person. He speaks truth, saying, maybe you could start loving yourself when you start accepting my love for you. That we need to stop condemning ourselves and looking ourselves and trying to find some sort of rational truth apart from God that is the reason why we're lovable, and we start to step into the truth, which is that because God is love and because His expression to us is simply put love itself, that by receiving it, that we can start healing and start being in revival and start thriving and start accepting that we are made for more than the brokenness and tragedies of the world. Maybe the first thing we need to do is die to our rights to being wronged. I'll say that one more time. Maybe the first thing we need to do is to die to our rights of being wronged. That we fight for our rights, for this justice. Maybe it's time to leave justice to the hands of God. That we are not some sort of vigilantes, right? That fights for justice in itself. But in receiving the love of God, we learn the beauty of forgiveness. We learn the beauty of letting go. And we learn the beauty of moving on from the brokenness that has been in our life or that is in our life currently. And the only way we do that, we talk about love, we talk about hope. The center of all these things will only be shown through embracing the love of God. And once we believe and we hold on to the truth of His love, what does it say at the end of that passage? It says, love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never ends. We're going to read the end of this passage, verse 8 through 13, to see the end of what we're seeing about love. Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, and when perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I have fully known. So now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love. Paul is confessing he had a long journey of life. And for most of his life, he thought knowledge was supreme. He thought education. He thought knowing God was the most important thing. As a Pharisee, he studied the scriptures, he memorized the scriptures, but in his pride, him insisting in his way, he ended up killing so many innocent people for their faith in Jesus Christ. And he is admitting that he was once a child. He thought like a child. He looked at life like a child. He valued things that, honestly speaking, were only a part of the picture. And the more he matures, he realizes that the center of every expression in our life must not be a pursuit of excellence, must not be a pursuit of just doing something, that at the center of our life, our desire and our motivation, it must be the love of Christ. It must be His love that strengthens us, but it must be His love that must be the expression we give to the world. Church, even at my center, I empathize with Paul. Even in my younger 20s, I had passion for being a tutor. I love teaching, right? I love seeing people improve their grades from like a C to a B or a C to an A or B to A. Or I love seeing people grow. I was reputed even in my early 20s of being a life coach where people, especially the Irvine moms, would come to me and say, Joe, I was a teacher back then, can you help whip my child into shape, right? Into holistic shape. Like, can you bring them to a better place? And I thought righteousness, excellence was everything in my younger years. But like Paul, excellence upon itself becomes pride. These good things that we want to do without love is hollow. That at the center of every interaction that I must have, at the center of every word that I say, at the center of every expression that I must give, I must be centered on knowing the love of Christ for me and knowing that expressing His love is the only thing that will last forever. That love in itself, especially the agape love of Christ, never fails. Never fails. And church, a lot of times, we always wonder about our interaction with one another. We're going to go into life groups. We're going to talk about the book material. We're going to go down in fellowship when we eat. We're going to be talking about different things. And a lot of times we get caught up in what we need to talk about. We get awkward when we lose things to say, when there's gaps in that conversation. But at the end of the day, if at your heart you just continue to remember, I am loved by Christ, and all I need to do, every word or action that I say and do, must express His love to others. If that is what is on your heart, I promise you that what you do and what you say will make an eternal impact, and it'll be meaningful. And that's all we need to do when we share life with one another. And that's what I desire to commit to do. That within all the teachings and all the sermons and all the communications and all the interactions that I have with you, I personally do and commit to speak the language of Christ and His heart for you. And it's as simple as that. And once you do that, faith, hope, joy, peace, kind, all these things will flow through. So church, let's really commit. Let's really commit to think about how we view the world and how we express ourselves to the world. And if it is still us, if it is still our persistence of our way of love, our viewpoint to a point where we value wrongdoing, where we rejoice in people's wrongdoing more than what is good, that we need to realign ourselves to the only thing, the only language that will last forever. Can we close our eyes? I want to spend some time to meditate on the message today, to meditate on His love for us. I think one of the first lies that the evil one shares with us is that we are not worthy of His love. But as someone that has loved fully, I will say this: I don't love someone because they deserve my love. I remember even with my family, one thing I really try to do is express genuine love. And in turn, what's very interesting is I remember when I was in the States, every single time I went around outside and looked around, I thought about my wife and my children, right? Like, how can I bless my family? Every time I saw a church or every time I saw people interacting as a community, I thought of NSC. And even if I wasn't gaining anything from my family or anything from our church, I was so happy. And I remember I came home at 4:35 a.m. This Thursday. And I remember right when I opened my door, I saw in like blocks of paper, "Welcome home, Appa," with pictures of my daughters and like smile and "We love you." And then on the kitchen, I saw 된장찌개 and rice that my wife put, like, "Welcome home. Here's some food if you're hungry." It's a beautiful thing when, regardless of what they have done for me, I've done for them, just the virtue that we're seeing each other again, we want to love one another. That's a love that is not conditional. That is a love that expresses regardless of what the other person has done for them. And that is a love that we must pursue. A love that is not based on just how we see and how we hear, how we smell, or how we receive, but it is an expression of the way we view the world. And so, church, let's really process our relationship with love, our relationship with Christ right now in this time, and lay it down before Him. And again, as we said, we have our communion elements. After you are done with your prayer, please partake of the bread and body, the body and the blood of Christ, the juice and the bread that really represent His sacrifice for you and His expression of love for you, right? And then after that, we'll be going into praise, but we'll give you this time right now.